Good afternoon. My name is Brahim Mugharbal. I'm the Managing Director of Great Place to Work in UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman. We're very pleased to be having this webinar today, and we have a very special guest as well. We're going to be talking about enhancing the workplace culture in the governmental sector. The guest today is Layla Al Hassan, who is the Organizational Culture Advisor at Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority. Hello, Layla, and we're very happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Your organization, out of all, is very special to us because you have a beautiful mission, and this specific organization has been established for specific objectives in Abu Dhabi. Can you tell us more about your organization and what do you aim to do for parents?
So the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority is one of the newest government entities in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. And we are only 3 years old. So if you compare that to the life of a child, we're starting to run. We focus on the very, very important early years, the ages of 0 to 8. And, they call that, Ibrahim, yes, they're the toughest years, but they also call them the magical years. And the reason why they use that term is because it's all about brain development. A child's early stages are so important to their brain development. And so the Early Childhood Authority puts all its focus on this age group. We have 4 key roles. We work with more than 70 partners to enable them to look at early childhood from a holistic point of view. We develop the policies and the laws relevant to this age group. We support working families. We're trying to also disrupt the way the community views early childhood. And finally, we look at research and data. We're trying to empower decision makers with all the knowledge and the data that they need. A key priority for us is supporting working families. And one of the ways we do that is that we're recognizing organizations across the private sector who really support their working parents.
100%. And speaking about that, you just don't do that. Your people have spoken, and huge congratulations. You've been certified as a great place to work, and we're very proud of you. So tell me, Layla, how important Great Place to Work? I know you're a great ambassador of the mission of Great Place to Work, and you're very interested in implementing that in ECA. But tell me, how important for a governmental entity to be considering Great Place to Work? Why is it important?
It's extremely important when you work for government, and I'm very grateful. I've been working for the Abu Dhabi government for almost 20 years. You are a public servant for a cause, for a community. The mission is so noble. And so if you haven't cultivated a great culture within your government organization, that's going to reflect on every service, on every interaction that government employee is going to have with the member of the community. It's going to reflect into their work. On the flip side, if you've intentionally cultivated a great culture, if you've really focused on what your values are and how that resonates with your employees, if you've really looked at what behaviors you want to encourage, and really prioritized your culture, just as much effort as you give to strategy, for example, that's going to reflect positively into all the interactions, into every idea they put forth, the employees, and they're going to be the ambassadors for the cause and for the government entity within the community. So absolutely, it's important. And, the famous saying goes is culture eats strategy for breakfast, isn't it? And so, it's just as important, but it's really, really, I really want to stress is that Unfortunately, a lot of government entities hand this important responsibility to someone maybe who has other responsibilities, someone maybe who sits within HR and it's not their top priority culture. It's a nice to do to engage employees. I would really encourage that you have someone who is fully dedicated to reinforcing the culture that you want, who constantly raises that banner within the organization, who flags issues when the ship goes off course, as they say, or when you grow as an organization and the culture starts to shift. This is something I would really recommend for a government organization that's considering looking at its and examining its culture.
Beautiful, beautiful. We work with a lot of organizations who are governmental entities similar to yourself. We work with Dubai Customs, SIWA, DIWA, Sharjah IGAV, Capital Market Authority. And actually, December is a special month for us because in this month, for the first time ever in the region, in the Middle East, we are revealing the best workplaces for parents in UAE, which is happening on the 15th of December. But also, we're revealing the best workplaces in the public sector in the GCC. This is also happening on December, end of December. So we're very excited about these two milestones, not just for us as a great place to work, but as a region as well, thinking about the work-life balance. I mean, when we thought about the parent list specifically, you said it correctly. So how can we consider the employees? And the parent list conversation came straight after COVID. Everybody was saying we got used to the working from home. Now you're asking us to go back to the office. So how can we actually get these priorities instead? So this is why we thought about, you know what, the best workplaces for parents will be able to sort out the organization and recognize the organization who's focusing on this. Leila, what do you think about what I just said about the parent list and the governmental
The
list as well?
future of work, Ibrahim, is parent friendly. An organization that understands that the employee has responsibilities outside office walls is an organization that gets it and that's forward thinking and progressive. Once an employee feels that they're understood and listened to and appreciated, that will reflect into their work, into their productivity, their motivation, their morale. The research shows that this is directly related to retention of employees. So it makes sense for business to be a parent-friendly workplace. We were talking about, so, entering the great place to work journey for us, Ibrahim, was about celebrating what makes our culture great. But even more importantly, it was about identifying what we need to improve. And what was really great about this journey is that you realize that, yes, the majority are having a great work experience, and therefore we got certified. But you also want to look at who's not having such a spectacular experience and look at why and try and dig deeper and try and understand and support them. By no means is the great place to work kind of experience all about just celebrating what you do good and calling it a day. There's a lot of hard work that goes into post survey, in terms of identifying what you can improve on and the root causes of why someone has said something in a survey. And this is really where we at in our organization. It's a very interesting and exciting time for us as we reorient our whole plan for 2023 from a culture perspective to address what areas we need to improve on and to celebrate and reinforce what we're doing great in.
You said something which is really nice. You said this is a journey we're stepping into. And that's exactly what Great Place to Work is all about. When we think about Great Place to Work, our methodology as a global authority for workplace culture, we want to support organizations to become a great place to work for all without any exception. Speaking about parents, speaking about women, speaking about millennials, speaking about Generation Z, whoever and whatever you are in the organization, it doesn't matter. So how can we help you to become a great place to work for all without any exception? And I'm so happy to hear you saying that we're going to work even harder and harder to become that organization, because the definition of a great place to work is how to become an organization which is high performance and high trust. And I love that you have that correlation in your brain. Please, Leila, tell me.
Definitely, what you're describing is just reinforcing the message that culture is not a project. There's no start and end to this.
True.
Right? And should never be projectized. Culture is something that's ongoing, that you keep an eye on as you grow. You notice where you're shifting in terms of whether you're misaligned sometimes with your values. And I always say this at the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority. I always tell them, it's okay that you're not completely aligned to your values every single day. As long as there's the effort for you to keep trying, to realign with the behaviors that are desired, with the culture that we want to reinforce. When we talk about well-being is a huge part of Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority culture. And some days you won't have work-life balance. As long as the majority of your work experience is one where you feel understood and heard and appreciated, then that's great. But it's not about just every day being perfect. There's no perfect workplace. There's no perfect work day, right?
Sure.
There are some great work days and some great workplaces, but as long as there's initiative, as long as there's someone who is also championing this internally. And at the top of all of this is that there's a leadership that is switched on to this, the importance of culture, and is role modeling everything that you're saying.
I love you're just helping me to another question. But before I move to the leadership, which is a key element as well, I want to talk about today. We, as a Great Place to Work, we want to recognize these heroes, these organizations who focus on creating this amazing experience for the people to be able to perform. And this is why we do the list, best workplaces for women, for millennials. So we call them heroes, because we want to recognize these type of heroes. Speaking about leadership, so some people come to us, or some organization come to us, similar to you. Laila, you were very excited about that, but then your leadership was also excited. But you have governmental agencies where you have a person, or the HR person, or the cultural person who come to us and say, this is exciting, I want to make it happen. However, the leadership doesn't understand the impact of culture on organization. What's your message for the leadership? What can they learn from ECA as a process?
I think for this journey to really succeed, in terms of understanding where you sit as an organization, in terms of what you're strong in terms of culture, for it to succeed, you need as much buy-in internally as possible. And this is something that we did. So when we started this journey, we had middle management and our top leadership involved, and the buy-in. So for us, when we started 3 years ago, there was an intention. There was a purposeful kind of consciousness that we want this to be a great work experience for anyone who touches, who comes into the ECA. And when they do leave, that they leave as proud ambassadors of the cause. Our tagline, Ibrahim, is keeping the child at the heart of all we do. And how one of the things we know is that we expect someone to keep the child at the heart of all we do is that they're a happy, listened to, appreciated employee, someone who's cared for, someone who is respected, someone who feels that their well-being is important. So my advice would be that definitely try and get your leadership on board before you start this journey, because it's something that has to be have buy-in from the inside.
I speak alone. The whole team of Great Place to Work, we speak to 8-9 organizations, from governmental to private. We speak to more than 20,000 organizations around the globe. And you have all these different perspectives of things. But I think one of the key things I really like for this region is for leadership to understand what you just said. Culture can have strategy for breakfast. That's exactly something that I hope leadership one day, or the leadership across the organizations, I understand that. Not just for us to speak to HR people. Let's talk more about ECA. Leila, please go ahead.
Culture is not just important to make sure that your strategy gets implemented. I want to add that it's also one of the top questions right now in interview questions, Ibrahim. And I've conducted 2 interviews over the past few months, and one of the first things they asked me is, what is the culture like? Do you offer flexibility? How are you going to help me develop? And these were questions that maybe people were a bit shy to ask before, or maybe people were not prioritizing before, but now it's very common in today's market that you get asked these questions. People care about these things. People are no longer reading just your annual report to get to know who you are, or going to your website. They're talking to employees on the inside. They're asking culture questions. What's it like? And we all know culture is that thing that you feel when you step into an organization. It's that feeling you get when you talk to the receptionist. It's the way things just feel. It's a feeling. Culture is a feeling, the way people behave in a meeting.
True. A question to you, Laila. What do you say to the governmental entities who say, we're government, people will come to us?
Where do I start? Okay, so I think if you go back to the core message, which is, as a government entity, you are a public servant serving a community. So in our example, we are serving Abu Dhabi's children. We're working with our partners to make sure these beautiful, amazing children have a great start in life and can flourish. With this cause in mind, I want our people to be having the best work experience. So that reflects into everything they do.
Mhm.
I'm also competing for the best talent in the market. We want to attract the best people to work for our organization. And people, like I said, are asking this question right at the interview stage. What's your culture like?
So whatever worked in the 1980s is not working anymore, isn't it?
100%, 100%.
I love where you're coming from, Layla. Layla, I want to talk more about ECA. What makes ECA a great place to work? You got the certification, and I know what I love about you guys is you want to always evolve, and that's really the mentality of a true great place to work and a best workplace. So, what makes ECA a great place to work?
If I can sum it up in one sentence, ECA is about doing government differently. And that touches upon a lot of everything that we're doing. So I'll give you an example. When we talk about well-being, so we made sure that your Fridays, because as you know, in the UAE, Fridays we work a half day, so up until around 12:30. We wanted to make sure that your Fridays are used in the best way possible. So we identified Fridays as meeting-free days, where you have head-down focus time. You can connect with your team one-on-one. You can catch up on reading, strategizing, and planning for the next week. We piloted this for a while, and then we went back to our employees and said, how's it going? The majority, almost 90%, said they wanted it to stay, for the reasons being that now they are more conscious about how they identify meetings during the week. They're looking for more purposeful engagement during the week because Friday is off limits, right? This goes to, I need to also say this, that doesn't mean that every Friday is going to be perfect. You will sometimes have to put in meetings because of urgent, but it's not the norm. It's not the every Friday.
You have to be agile.
Another ritual that helps us reinforce the importance of well-being is Monday mental breaks. Every Monday, we all stop working for 30 minutes to re-emphasize the importance of taking a break. And we all do a practice together. So off the top of my head, last time we did eye yoga. I didn't even know that was a thing, Ibrahim.
Okay.
Or we listen to someone talk about how if you have a strong, happy spine, you can have a great, it really affects your health. We had a chiropractor on site giving us advice. And so it sends a message that we care about your well-being. Yes, it's once a week, but it's an example of workplace support, right? The overall, in terms of when I talk about doing government differently, I think we're the only government entity that is offering a hybrid working model in practice in terms of flexible working. So the perfect example right now, I'm working from home because my schedule, I would like to balance between my family responsibilities and my work commitments to be able to watch my daughter's winter concert this morning at nursery, which was important to me. So the fact that a workplace understands what's important to the employee, and then at the same time, that employee understands the organization has responsibilities as well, and you have a commitment towards delivering what you need to deliver that day, then you have a great balance. Then you have employees really putting their heart into their work, and it's reflecting into their work.
I'm just gonna say we're open for questions. So any questions that you guys have, just put it in the comments, and definitely I'll tackle these questions as part of the Q&A. Layla, you said something which is really nice. So you have the winter concert for your daughter, which is happening, right? Why is it important for the company to be taking care of that? Like, why would they be thinking about your personal, let's say, task or priorities? How does that help the company or the organization or the governmental entity?
So the research shows, Ibrahim, is that once you're offering such parent-friendly policies and practices in your workplace, it reflects directly onto employee motivation, morale, productivity, and retention at the end of the day. And this is something that's been proven in research, and we've seen examples of that already in the UAE. We've heard stories of parent-friendly workplaces in the UAE where the employee received an offer from another organization which was higher in terms of compensation, but they turned it down because what they receive from their current workplace in terms of parent-friendly support is priceless, cannot be measured in terms of financial terms. It's something that right now to them, and especially after the pandemic has shown us, is that people care about these issues. People want to have a more well-rounded life. We often say internally at the ECAs that we get it. We get that you wear many hats. We get that the gym is important to you, that socializing enriches your life, or spending time with your parents who are elderly. We always see that we get that, and we want you to spend as much time as you can in things that make you happy, because that will reflect eventually in your work. We often say we want people to spend 100% on their work, but then also 100% on unwinding. And we also encourage people to leave the work WhatsApp group when you're on leave, when you're on your holiday. Detach, leave the work WhatsApp group. And this is role modeled at the top by our leadership, and it's something that we're very proud of, because the role modeling is the key to the success in all of this.
It's all starts with leadership, 100%. We're receiving a lot of beautiful comments from people. Elias said, this is a very well said. It's a continuous journey and requires consistency. The question is, what is the biggest challenges in the governmental sector in this journey? What tips can you give to other governmental entities to overcome them?
I think it's important to highlight that what works for us may not work for other government organizations. I often get challenged, Brahim, where they tell me, well, you're only 100 employees, we're 20,000. It's not about the size of the organization or what industry you're in. This is about the willingness and being brave to take these steps, to pilot things, to listen to employees, to tighten up your performance management, so that when an employee is not clocking in or out, where you don't have that system, you still know what they're delivering on. 100%. You still know what they're expected to do, and the performance measures are clear. It takes a bit more work if you do adopt a flexible working model. I think one of the biggest maybe challenges that some government organizations have is that culture is seen as a second priority, more like employee engagement. And a lot of organizations, I've noticed, understand culture as free tickets, as perks. And this is the sort of thing that we really need to differentiate in terms of, we're talking about parent-friendly workplaces, and I just have...
Beautiful. Hello.
This wasn't planned.
And this is what Great Place to Work is all about, isn't it?
Exactly. And this wasn't planned, wallah. What I was saying was that it's really important to differentiate between the freebies and the perks, which make employees happy, but it's not what makes them stay. 100%. What makes them stay is that the day-to-day behaviors that they witness and that they see from their colleagues is something that's aligned to the values. That's what makes an employee stay. Free tickets are great. Foosball table. These are all perks which a lot of companies have tried. But at the end of the day, if you have a toxic culture where you're not being respected, where you're not being recognized fairly, that is going to affect the employee. No matter how many free food you give, and it's a balance. It's a balance there.
100%. There's a lot of companies who believe that the financial income is the main decision maker for employees. And I always say, after COVID, forget about that. People don't care about they do care, but it's not their first priority. People are looking for happiness. People want to be happy where they are. We have a lot of participants coming from not just the UAE. We have people coming from Tunisia. Hello, Khalid. We have people coming from Oman. Hello, Sadiq. We have so many people coming from across the region. I'm so happy to see that. Rawan said to you, Layla, she's a big fan.
And working parents. Yes. Hi, Rawan.
So let's talk about moms. So moms, like, what do you advise to all?
Can I turn it around? Let's talk about parents.
Parents, okay.
Equal responsibilities. Yes, the mothers bear the brunt mostly of care and childcare and everything. But I think, when it comes to working parents, we want to also encourage fathers to take on the responsibilities. This is why, as the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority, we're big advocates of sufficient and generous paternity leave, which is the leave for new fathers. My advice would be, whichever organization you work for, is to really be clear on what your goals are. A lot of, especially as females, we tend to take a step back, let our goals be defined for us. My advice would be is to open up and be very clear at recruitment stage, at the hiring process. I have a responsibility for a child who's below 8 years old. which essentially means the child is dependent on you for survival, especially 0 to 3. Or you have caregiving responsibilities for an elderly parent. And just come to an understanding with that organization of what you're able to give, and set expectations. I think that's quite important. And the other, on the flip side, as workplaces, I think take the time to understand what their capabilities are, what maybe their limitations are, and give them an opportunity. Don't assume just because she's a mother of 5 children that she won't be able to deliver. Working parents, as we know, a lot of us here in this webinar attending are working parents. You're the best time management experts. You are the best multitaskers. Who wouldn't want to hire you? You have a skill set that you've earned because being a working parent that is so needed in a lot of the organizations. Basically, I hope that helps.
Look, from my perspective, I wish we have more time. I mean, we still have only 5 minutes. And honestly speaking, these are one of the webinars I really enjoyed. Layla, you're so driven and you know what you want. And that's, I think, what you said as a tip for working mom. When you start the interview, tell them exactly what you want, because you know what you want as a person and as a mom, definitely. There's a question coming as well from Sherwell, and I'm going to actually take this question, another question as well, because we only have 4 minutes left. So when you look at ECA, what do they do in terms of enhancing the workplace culture? And we had another question saying that your role is interesting. So they was just reading your role, and they said you have a very important or a very unique role. So what are other companies are missing by not having this function internally, like by not having this role being implemented as well?
I know we're short of time, so I'll keep it very quick. So in terms of what the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority is doing to encourage other workplaces, of course, we have the Parent Friendly Label, which is a workplace award program where we recognize organizations in the private sector for being parent friendly. That's one thing. But then in terms of the government sector, which is not eligible to apply for the label, we do work closely with them to encourage them. So just 2 days ago, I had a government entity approach us and say, you have a beautiful nurturing room. So we have a room that's essentially a nursing room and a maternity room. How did you go about it? What are the requirements? And we take them through that. We had another government entity approach us because they had heard about one of our annual rituals, which is Bring a Child to Work Day. We really put a different spin on it. Typically you'd bring your child into the workplace, talk to them about your work, and they leave. For us, it was a full day program. And also what we emphasized was every day is Bring a Child to Work Day for in our culture. And so, it's a no questions asked policy. If you need to bring your child in, they're welcome with open arms. And this is something that we want to encourage, as long as it's been balanced with the nature of your work, of course, and the workplace kind of boundaries and that sort of thing. For us, it works. It might not work for other organizations, but for us, it sends a clear signal that we get it. We understand that you have other responsibilities and as an employee, and you have the chance and the flexibility, if you need to come in, to bring your child. We have a children's room. We have a nurturing room set up in our offices. That helps.
I'm going to take one more question, because actually this is an interesting question, if you don't mind, Layla. So great culture in a workplace, this is coming from Piyush. Great culture in a workplace has a direct impact on employee well-being inside and outside the workplaces. Do you recommend workplaces in the Middle East or GCC region should be adopting the 4 days work week model that has been adopted by many in the European region to balance their family lives?
So I'm not a big fan of any sort of copy and paste models that may have worked abroad and may not. Let's do what works for us. But I think we have a lot of work to do before we get to a 4-day work model. And one is just making sure we communicate and meet efficiently. Start with the basics. The next time you receive a meeting invitation and it's not clear, reach out, find out what the purpose is, find out what the agenda is. If you even need to be there, if it can be solved by a quick chat or by a email. These are the small basic, I think, steps that organizations can take for efficiency before we jump to a 4-day work model, right? For us, meeting free Fridays works, because we needed to balance out and have some focused time. The nature of our work requires researching and strategizing. I think study what works for you, understand your workforce. Not every workforce, Ibrahim, as you know, not every employee enjoys work from home or can even have work from home. Sure. We have one of our amazing colleagues, one of our accountants, has shared with us that work from home is not even a consideration. He has very young children. They live in a two-bedroom apartment. It just, in terms of the logistics, it doesn't work for him. So we can't apply and assume what works for Layla will work for everyone, for example. You need to balance, and you need to just be a great listener and listen to your employees and try to balance what your organization needs with what they need.
100%. I think the word is agility as an organization. And this is where you said, as an example, it doesn't mean that if it works for in Europe, it's going to work in GCC or UAE, and vice versa, by the way. So it doesn't mean like if you're doing something here, it's going to work there. And it doesn't mean if you're doing something for ECA, it's going to work for another organization, governmental or private. What you said about being agile as an organization and fluid in terms of how you can adapt to the requirement to your people, the business, and the human required of the business as well. I think what you said is key here. As an example, what you said about Friday, actually, this is considered as a best practice. So we take that, we don't do a face-to-face, but however, we use it as a way for us to strategize for the whole week as well. Somehow it is for 4.5 in your case, not even 5 days in terms of work. So I think that agility is key in the process. And this is where companies are always confused. Like, what can we do to do things better? We always say, actively listen to your people.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this as an example. If you're, I mean, I'm not giving ideas here, but if one GM or CEO decided not to show up to work one day, there's no impact. I mean, there is going to be an impact, but not a major impact. But imagine if one day,
Depends on the CEO.
imagine all of your employees would not show up to work. That is a major
And they
issue.
could be showing up to work, Ibrahim, but not really showing up, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
They're not present. They're not mindful in their meetings. They've already checked out. They're maybe looking elsewhere. They're always saying right now, they're saying check in before they check out. Literally, check in with your employees. And this, for example, Meet Free Fridays is a great day to pick up the phone. How are you doing? How was your week? What's coming up next week? Create the opportunities.
100%. One more question I have. Sorry, I have to take that question as well. When it comes to, and I know you're working on this really well. So it's not just about when you're working on the culture. Yes, Layla is the culture responsible in ECA, but it's not just on Layla, isn't it? Many people play a key role.
This is a very important point. All of us are guardians of our values. All of us are responsible for culture, but you need to have someone internally who's steering and flagging issues, and that's their full-time job. Someone who implements the rituals aren't going to happen by themselves. When we talk about our discovery days and our meeting free Fridays, someone needs to drive that. What we've done at the ECA is we have the internal champion for culture, which is myself, but then we've also formed a cross-functional team that helps flag issues, that helps implement rituals. And this is a representative team from the whole organization. It's a 9-member team. And I want to give them a shout out because they are really supporting and keeping an eye on the culture and ensuring that we're reinforcing what we're saying.
So you're talking about creating leaders and champions within the business. And this is where we believe as a great place to work that managers play a key role in the process, because every time there's a problem, you always blame the culture or the HR person. And this is where sometimes I say, guys, we're more than happy to provide you with best practices, but sometimes you do have it. And this is where our scoring system helps you identify, as an example, when you're comparing departments. You might have a department who's overachieving and a department who's underachievement, or there's another achievement there. So the reason behind it is not really best practice. In this scenario, it's the manager or the champion responsible for that specific demographic.
Everything's related to people at the end.
100%.
Everything is related to people. You can have the best processes, you can be producing the best products. At the end of the day, if someone is not acting like a leader and if someone is not living the values day to day as much as they can, the knock-on effect is going to show up in the work. It's going to show up in the company's reputation.
Can I ask you one more question, if you don't mind? And this is going to be a very sensitive one. So in governmental entities, the challenge is sometimes you're very dedicated, you're very passionate. I'm not talking about ECA scenario here. I'm talking about any governmental agency or any organization it could be. So you have the culture person or the HR person who's very interested. But then when you go to the champions that you're talking about, some of them are interested and engaged, and some of them are not. So what do you do in this scenario? So you got stuck by people who doesn't want to help you. Not all of them.
Keep going. Pilot things and demonstrate the impact. Demonstrate the results internally. keep going. I think there's enough global evidence and now regional and local evidence to show that a great culture is related to productivity. It's related to all the business objectives that management wants to achieve anyways. So I would encourage them to keep going, pilot things, start small, take small steps, increase, 1% improvement, as they say, demonstrate that internally, build the case for it. But don't quit. Don't give up on this sort of thing. It's extremely important.
100%. Finally, I'm going to wrap up with this, a question and a food for thought for everybody. Culture and great place to work, does it impact productivity? Does it impact revenues? Does it impact operations? Or does it impact retention?
It's a question for me, or
what do you think? I mean, you can give your input, but it's actually a question as well for the people on the call. So what do you think, Vanilla, from your perspective, what do you think?
Look, it goes down to basics. In life, when you care about someone, when you demonstrate appreciation, when you're respectful, when there's camaraderie, when there's friendships, people want to do better. People want to stay, want to be close to you. Similar to what you see in relationships and in life is reflected in the workplace.
True. So somehow you said it impacts all of them. Layla, I really enjoyed
All is correct.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Same here. Thank you, Ibrahim.
I really enjoyed also the interactive comments and insight that we got from the participant as well. We're going to be having more and more webinars. We're going to be having more and more celebrations. We're here to support as much as we can as a global authority. So as I said, we'll be celebrating the parent list in a couple of days and the public sector list as well in GCC. And potentially as well, we're looking at 2023 celebration of the UAE best workplaces as well. We're very excited about all these lists coming up. And we're very excited to be recognizing all these heroes similar to ECA who are really taking this mission and taking this to the next level as part of enhancing the business community in the UAE and the GCC region. Layla, I want to say thank you so much for being with us today. This was truly a very insightful and a joyful session. And I wish you the best of luck in your mission as well as ECA.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And finally, just anyone is interested in learning more about how our work at the Early Childhood Authority, how we're supporting working families, please do get in touch with us.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Layla.
Thank you.